Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of your hosts for Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. In this episode, we discuss the research on how curriculum that's relevant to our kids actually improves their attendance. Now, listening to this conversation, I think you'll enjoy the research on something we know intuitively, and that is if students are interested in what's being taught at school, they'll want to be there more often and won't want to miss school. And I think learning and understanding more about a relevant curriculum is really important because it helps you to engage students in their learning. Now, if you're wondering about how the curriculum is impacting attendance at your school, then this episode is for you because it really helps you as a school principal or superintendent to work on this with your teachers. Some of the main topics we're going to be covering include how to use a restorative circle that builds engagement of students and informs teaching practice. Secondly, a fair process that includes students in the development of curriculum inquiry. And paying attention to the student voice in what's being studied actually increases student attendance. Now, at the end of this episode, be sure to visit our website, www.restorative.ca, where you can find free resources plus links mentioned in the podcast. And if you enjoy this episode, be sure to subscribe. Now, let's head over to this discussion with Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. The research that we're discussing today is about connecting the curriculum to students' lives. And that totally fits with restorative practice, right?
Right. And attendance.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Right.
Because the more connected it is, the more likely kids are to be interested and want to come to school.
Yeah. Well, the benefits of a well-connected curriculum, a well-planned curriculum, it plays out in terms of, behavior in the classroom and all sorts of things. It just makes teachers' lives a whole lot easier. I mean, if the kids you put some effort into planning your curriculum, make it relevant to their lives. And as you say, it relates to restorative practice because we do want to work with kids. And that's the quadrant, the upper quadrant that we always talk about, the restorative quadrant. Let's work with the kids. Let's work with each other. Ask them what they're interested in. Let's make the tasks in the class, the content, make it culturally relevant. Kids are going to be tied into it. I've said this for years to brand new teachers. The best classroom management tool is a well-planned curriculum because kids are into it and they're less likely to do the other things. But to your point, Shelley, about the attendance, if they love it and they're into it, they're going to show up every day because they want to do it.
Because it's connected to their lives, right? That's the big thing. So our task as teacher in terms of attendance is to connect the curriculum to their lives, and then students will show up more. That's what this research is showing.
And when we think about the quadrants of restorative practice where and working with, there's still high expectations. So we still need to talk about this curriculum area or do some work with it. But then I'm going to ask what parts of it you already understand, where I need to decide where my teaching is going to start, what knowledge is already in the classroom, or what can they bring to the topic. So that's that high expectations, but I've got lots of support to help you meet those as well.
And what a perfect thing to do in a circle, right? So there we got another restorative connection to ask these kinds of questions like, so what do you already know about this? Or what kinds of things do we need to find out about this? Or what parts of your life kind of connect to this? And just ask those kinds of questions. And now you're getting the student engagement, right? In those kinds of questions that can actually lead how you would present this particular topic or part of the curriculum.
So you as the educator don't need to have all those answers.
No, well, that's the thing that I love about restorative practice too, is that I don't have to have the answers. I just need to be able to help shape the questions that students can do the investigation on. I mean, one of the saddest classes I was in was a grade 7 science class where when there was a group of 4 boys sitting together in a group. And when a question came up about, something related to space, I forget what it was. They said, well, how about this? Like, how does that work? And the teacher just said, that's not the topic we're talking about right now. And just shut down that question. And I thought, oh my goodness, like you got the internet in the classroom. These guys would be, and each one of them, 3 out of 4 asked a question. They were shut down. And as a result, the behavior level, they started acting out. And
I was going to say, you're going to shut down a lot more than just the question. You've shut down a lot more in that moment. Yes.
Yeah. So what an opportunity missed, right? To connect the curriculum to their lives.
And it can be challenging for teachers to create curriculum the higher you get up in the levels of school, the curriculum is very laid on in terms of content sometimes. The content subjects, science, geography, history, where there are certain things that need to be covered, time periods in history or in science specifically, certain ideas or concepts. And so you have to sometimes work to make it culturally relevant. And so that means working with your colleagues. And isn't that a good thing too, to start to work with the colleagues in your school to develop these things? But, it does take some work. But as a teacher, I know that, you're in it for 30 years or 25 or 30 years, whatever your career is. Put the work in your first few years to start doing that stuff. And it gets easier and easier as you go along. I can remember, my first few years teaching, and I'd be teaching some concept in math, and the proverbial question, when am I ever going to use this? Why do I need to know this? When am I ever going to use this? Not a bad question. It's a valid question. And so trying to make, even concepts in math relevant to their lives. Well, here, let me show you. Here are ways that you're probably going to end up using this in the future. The Pythagorean theorem. You're ever going to build a fence in your life? You're ever going to try and make a square corner? I mean, there are ways to apply some of that to everyday life. So you have to really think outside the box sometimes as a curriculum developer or a teacher. But you know what? You don't have to do it all yourself because somebody else has probably already done it. So it does take some co-planning, but boy, it makes the lives a whole lot better for the kids when they can see some practical application or relevancy to what they're learning, and makes your life easier too in terms of running your classroom.
And as an educator, doing that inquiry at the beginning of a unit, you may reduce some of your workload when you discover they have a good solid understanding already from
Mhm.
last year or whatever it is of this area. Okay, I can just do a little review and then I'm going to move on to something else rather than thinking you need to move through everything because maybe the group already is pretty solid in a particular area and you can just build on it from there.
Well, and often what would happen is, okay, we're going to start a unit on solutions. Oh, we did that last year, sir. We
Right.
already did that. Well, let's find out what the base is of your knowledge and understanding, and let's build from there. So you never have to worry about repeating a unit. You can always
Mhm.
go into a lot more depth. And I think what's interesting in this research too is they call it utility value intervention. And basically what they're saying is the more you connect the content to students' lives, and the more frequently you do that, the more likely you are to improve student achievement, especially among the lowest performing students. And
Mm.
so they actually say in the research, the lowest performing males actually improved the most by paying attention to connecting to their lives and doing that very, very often. So, restorative practice applications, what would you take from this?
It's fair process. It's teachers talking to kids and asking them the questions. And as you said earlier, Stan, a circle is a great way to do that at the beginning of a unit. And not every kid's going to get the project that they want every time, but fair process tells us if they're involved in that discussion at the beginning and they given their voice, they're more likely to buy into it.
And I would say again, just to talk about the circle at the beginning of a unit and maybe midway and maybe at the end, but it gives voice to the students. You're able to assess what level they're at. They're also able to, maybe this is something three-quarters of the class really doesn't understand. So now I'm not alone in not understanding how this fits into my life or even how to work with this. So now I, as a student, um, if I'm struggle with behavior, may have, that may reduce those kind of things, or at least going to use my voice to say, I really don't get this either.
And often those kids that can be behavior concerns in your classroom have some area of expertise that you can now build on. And now they're engaged. And guess what? They're not acting out. And they're at school. If it's true, and I think it is, that each person in school plays a role in student attendance, then this research helps to direct teachers regarding relevant and connected curriculum. The research said low performing male students in this study improved the most by making it connected, or to use the term, the utility value interventions. Now, it makes sense to me to do that in a circle where I can as a teacher or a principal or a superintendent, and it allows me to listen to the voices of the students or the teachers. So check out the free resources, www.restorative.ca, if you want to find out some more about how to use circles to engage students in relevant curriculum. Send me an email, stan@restorative.ca, and Let's connect what we teach to the lives of the ones we're teaching. And you know what? He'll show up at school.